Awesome. All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Telivy MSP podcast. Very, very excited to introduce our guest here today. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Jeremy. My name is Eric Posa. I'm from Copeland Technology Solutions.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask you a bunch of follow-up questions to dig more into that. My intro is a little more elaborate, so bear with me, folks. Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremy, Head of Partnerships at Telivy, and we're an automated cybersecurity risk assessments platform for over 100 MSPs. MSPs like Halt Data Solutions, Triad Networks, Level 5 Management love Telivy because they run automated risk assessments to win new clients, provide quarterly security reports to existing clients, and help them meet compliance and reduce risk assessments that take 7 to 8 days manually to under 5 hours with Telivy. All right, so let's jump right in, Eric. Can you tell us about Copeland?
Sure. We are an MSP in the Western New York area. We are from Buffalo. Go Bills. So we started off as a software development company, and over the past 40 plus years have evolved into an MSP. Um, we support over 5,000 seats. We're a staff of 20 at the time. And yeah, things are growing great. A little crazy, but definitely having fun and loving what we're doing.
Awesome, very, very cool. So I want to dive deeper into your MSP.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a little bit about the problems you solve for your clients and the solutions and services that you offer, the managed services?
Absolutely, absolutely. I always tell organizations when they ask that we provide the help desk, break fix, your basics, hardware procurement. I think where we may differentiate ourselves from other organizations is that we really want to work with organizations that want to leverage technology, right? So
Mm,
they're not about doing business the same way they've always done it. They're always looking for some way to take a competitive advantage and using technology to do that, whether that's through the Microsoft 365 suite or doing stuff with remote desktop, Azure, cybersecurity, all of those things. We really want to work with those types of clients because that's what excites us, right? We want to see a business result driven by implementation of a technology. So that's really
mm.
what we're all about. So anybody can do a sales process, manage an account. What do you need to order? Yeah, we'll order that for you. But to truly understand a business, where it's going, and then align that technology with it to make that company a top performer is really what sets us apart. We're really excited about those types of opportunities.
I love the way that you described how clients should think about IT. You mentioned to drive business results. Could you give us an example of what business results that clients can drive with, your managed IT services?
Absolutely. I think anytime any organization is looking to implement some sort of solution, they should look at a couple things. Obviously, the big one is market penetration, increased margins, right? They want to make more money. Second one would be they want to save money. They want to be more efficient. They want to reduce costs, processes, things like that. Where we kind of like getting into is cycle times, right? How long can they get a product out the door? How long can they provide their services? What's their bandwidth?
Mm,
Can they do more with less? Can they grow with the same team? Things like that. Improve their business quality. So if they can communicate better, they can provide point of sale information that the competitors can't. Those types of things would drive some sort of technology. And then obviously the last thing, which I'm sure on your side you're all about, is the compliance aspect, making sure they're compliant. So if you're really not hitting one of those five things, I would question the true value that solution is going to provide your organization if it's worth the money and the spend.
very, very interesting. I'm debating on whether to dive into that now, but where did you develop this process, these five principles, right? Sometimes folks think of IT folks as like technical and
Sure.
nerds and things like that, and the way that you brought the business into it, right, and driving business results. Where did you? Why is that important to you?
Well, first off, I got to give credit where credit's due. I'm a student at heart. I love learning about different sales methodologies and things like that. And a gentleman by the name of Joe Maroney is a sales professional that's provided guidance. And we kind of came through conversation. He provided that information. And I kind of elaborated that in the IT space. So very, very important part of my sales and business development background was working with that gentleman. So credit to there. Today, I'm a business owner myself, right? If someone comes to me and they want me to spend money, and it's going to give me one of those things, I'm more than willing to invest, right? In any organization that's not willing to change with a direct business result identified and quantified,
Mm,
it's going to increase margins by 30%, or your cycle time, you're going to get product out the door 2 days faster. Why wouldn't I do that?
mm-hmm,
And that's how, on the technology side, we should be selling. There are a lot of opportunities out there just to make money. They're presenting themselves every day to me. The biggest challenge is if we're putting something in place and there isn't an end goal, something we can measure on, something that's improving their company, we don't feel the fulfillment. It's not providing us that excitement to continue doing that. We're just selling for the sake of making money.
mm,
Some
mm-hmm.
people, that's fine. For us, it's a little deeper.
You seem to understand your client's mentality and the persona very well. I'd love to dive into like a customer success story, end to end. When a client came to you, what was their business? What was their business need at that moment? How did you resolve whatever issue that they had? And what does the long term engagement and partnership look like there?
Sure. Lots to unpack in that. I think one of the best case studies specific to what we've been talking about is actually an existing customer, um, growing exponentially every year. A lot of users, a lot of infrastructure, um, multiple spaces leased in the same building, lots of costs there, working together with them to put together an Azure virtual desktop environment.
Mm,
What that would mean, scoping that out for them, not just saying, hey, this is what it costs, but what are they saving? How does it affect their business from a cybersecurity standpoint, from a performance standpoint? Who can they hire now? So one of the biggest things today is hiring, right? So if you take your organization to the cloud, if it fits, obviously not everyone can, you
mm,
can reach more talent in different places that may be
yep.
less expensive, a better fit. It just opens the door to different possibilities. So talking
Yeah.
out all of those different driven business results are really the cornerstone of that type of solution. So while it may not save them money, what it brings in the other four facets of their organization is driving the decision to move forward.
Interesting. I, I blacked out on my question. What does the long-term engagement look like now, after you've worked with them initially? What I'm curious just to compare and contrast the results they got initially versus sort of the long-term results they're getting at. And I remember my question. It was about what is Azure Virtual Desktop for those who don't know.
Oh, absolutely. So Azure Virtual Desktop is Microsoft's solution to providing remote desktop services in the cloud. So
Mm-hmm.
it allows us to provide a dynamic infrastructure for users to have a remote desktop so they can connect from anywhere, whether they're in
Mm-hmm.
the office, securely accessing it from coffee shops. Everyone always says the coffee shop thing. I like to say securely.
Yep.
But it allows for a very consistent experience for the user. They can utilize Microsoft Teams for video and chat and all of that much better in this environment, as opposed to having lots of servers or virtual servers internally in their infrastructure and managing that. It gets them out of the infrastructure business.
Mm-hmm.
The performance is great and it's dynamic. It's based on users. So it's a great thing. It's definitely the future of where we're going with a lot of our solutions because people are working remote. That is what it is. So long term, obviously we support it, right? So we have ticketing systems just like any other MSP. We have SLAs and organizations submit tickets. We make sure it's up and running, but it's not just about that. It's about putting together a complete strategy for measuring it. Is it performing?
Mm.
Are we do we have resources running too much and it's causing extra costs when we don't need that? putting in scripts in place to say, hey, only spin up a new machine if the need is there. And that way they're not they don't have machines just constantly running, incurring costs. So again, you can make a ton of money by just putting something static in place, but we would rather spend the time to put in something that is a strategic plan.
I'm curious, what's the risk of not doing that, right? Not putting in a long-term strategy and managed regularly month to month. You alluded to security a little bit earlier. I'd love to dive deeper into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The technology landscape is continuously changing. If you're not having conversations with your customer base or even just touch points, stuff coming down the pipe from Microsoft, um, new vulnerabilities out there, things that are happening, it's constantly happening. So if you're not having those conversations and steering that ship and adjusting that course, um, you're going to hit something one day. And it may not be something preventable. It may be, let's say it's an incident, a security incident, but you may have been able to reduce that scope. So instead of 100,000 records being affected, you have a
Mm,
thousand records. So having a conversation 3 months earlier about that has the organization thinking differently, and maybe we can reduce the scope. So um, I think in the tech world, what we're lacking a lot of is that those business conversations, talking to our clients about their business. And I
hmm
mean, it's pretty straightforward why it's very tough. Find me a technical person that can talk business, and you'll find a unicorn who gets paid a lot of money.
Yeah, I
So
mean, like yourself, right? You
yeah.
have both the technical and the business expertise.
Mhm.
I love for our fellow MSPs. I'd love to dive more into your sales process. You mentioned your sales mentality and strategy
Mhm.
earlier. How do I'm curious about, yeah, your sales process from, how you meet your clients to what's that first conversation like, and what's that demo or that pitch, and then after you win it, how do you continue working with them?
Sure.
And also, quick follow-up question: how
Mhm.
often are your regular check-ins and having those conversations?
I'll answer that one first because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
So minimum semi-annual. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I find that if it's quarterly, it becomes kind of repetitive, but there
Mm.
may be organizations, excuse me, of larger sizes or different requirements that need monthly check-ins, whether it's with a security team or an asset review or things like that. So um, it may not be meetings; it may be touch points like vulnerability scans every month.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that. Getting a report saying, "Hey, we looked at these vulnerabilities. This is what we found. This is what we patched." Just making sure you're demonstrating that value
Yeah.
and your client is understanding what's at stake and what's going on.
I'm gonna do a shameless plug right there because one of the reasons why MSPs
Have
love
at
Telivy
it.
is they could do these regular like monthly risk assessments and show the impact, right, that the MSP is making. Wow, over time you're getting more and more secure. We're getting less and less risk. Your dollar risk amount is going down, right? Of when a breach happens, right? You're protected and you're proactive about your security posture. But sorry, so yeah, could you, for our fellow MSPs, could you bring us into your thinking, your process, and how you run your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the sales process for us is very clear and it's very straightforward. We Someone may reach out to us through some sort of online marketing or videos, LinkedIn, whatever it is. We don't do a lot of proactive events. We may run a couple, like lunch and learns or introductions, but we're mostly word of mouth, thought leadership, demonstrating our thought leadership in the space in our area, and they find us. We don't want to have 150 opportunities a month because sifting through that obviously is not what we want. And
Mm,
we only want to qualify those companies as companies that want to improve, they want to grow, they have
mm,
definable aspirations. So that's usually where we start. There's a
wow.
connection made. We get 3 people in the room or 3 roles in the room. It could be 2 people for one role. Um, we have the person who understands the P&L, what it means to the organization if those services go down from a profit and loss top level, the most important piece. Secondly, is obviously procurement. We got to have someone who understands the money, going in and out, budgeting, all that fun stuff. And then a power user, someone who understands the day to
Mm.
day, what they do from a systems. This talks to
Mm-hmm.
that, that goes to here, and things like that. So making sure they're all in the room together. And then we ask a bunch of questions. Questions like, what would this do for your company? And they may say, oh, we're not happy with our current provider. Well, what does that mean to your organization not to have a good provider? Are you not hitting your deadline? Like driving into it and being very inquisitive about
Mm.
the detail. Can we quantify something? Because someone's not going to buy anything unless they really, really have a good feeling what it's going to give them.
Yep.
Uh, why now? Did something happen? Why is it important right now? What are the ramifications of doing nothing? Have you looked at other vendors? What if you delay? Can you do this internally? These types of questions. What's your budget? Do you need budget justification? What are the dates? One of the things I think a lot of technical people, fall on are dates. When do you have to have the proposal by? When do you have to have the vendor decided by? When does it have to be implemented by? And be completely honest. Can we hit that date or not? Like don't promise the work. And then lastly, what we do is we take the answers to all of that. We put it in what we call a smart proposal. That proposal has all of that stuff laid out in a way that addresses all of the put-offs that an organization could come up with. We're not ready. Well, technically, you said if you wait, this is what
Yep.
it's going to do to your organization.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
we're going to do it internally. Well, we talked about that. It's going to be X number of dollars plus insurance. And so it's a way to really have a live working business decision document as opposed to a proposal. And then at the end of it, we say, hey, we're Copeland. We've been
Wow.
around, 44 years. Not really important. But at the start of it is what we want to accomplish with this relationship from a business standpoint. So I hope I didn't talk too much about the
No,
sales process,
no,
but
that's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah, yeah,
It's fascinating. I love the part where you really ask the tough questions when you're qualifying. What if you delay? What if you do it internally? What if this? What if you get the answers to that? So when they present the customer objection, you go, well, we did consider that, right? And this is the result. Is this what you want, right? Take that risk or that breach or, have that cost. You mentioned something also interesting earlier about finding clients who um, basically have these well-defined goals and aspirations on we want to grow, right? And how do you find people like that? That feels so qualitative, right?
I I don't necessarily go after those people. I think finding them through groups and through networking and listening to people in the way that they talk about the future, and how they speak of their company, I think there's some flags there that can say, hey, this person may be someone that we can help. I think that initial conversation, with that lead or that opportunity that came to us will demonstrate their capacity. If Let's put it this way, if they're not willing to move
Mm-hmm.
and provide information and truly engage in the conversation, there's
Mm-hmm.
less than a
Mm-hmm.
1% chance we're going to close that.
Right, right,
It's
right.
a waste of time, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
hey, listen, not a good fit. I know three other organizations that maybe work for you. I can help make an introduction.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
100%. I think that's, in sales, qualification is so important. And I think, I remember when I was first getting into sales, uh, it was very difficult to say no, we're not a good fit when we're the ones selling. But I think over time you realize you take that feedback into your search, right? You take that feedback into your product. You take that feedback into saving you time and focusing on the ones who are a good fit is extremely critical. Um, I'm curious because we talk to a lot of MSPs who run risk assessments, and I'm very curious because we have MSPs who run risk assessments at the top of the sales cycle, which is, hey, we're going to run a risk assessment, and here's all the risks. We could come and fix it, and then they close the deal after that. And then you mentioned, oh, we provide regular scans and biannual reports and measure your security posture. And then there's MSPs who do both. I'm just curious, which one are you?
yeah, that's a great question. So we do both. there are some challenges with each. We can't, I'm very uncomfortable giving a proposal and saying we can do something if I'm not 100% sure we can do it. I think it sets improper expectations. If we don't meet those, we fail.
Yep.
We set the whole relationship and the whole future of that relationship up for failure, right?
Your brand.
So getting in there and doing a discovery or some sort of assessment, whether that's risk or just overall IT assessment, gives you some great knowledge. Okay. We can have a meeting. We can say, this is where you're failing. This is where you're not, against industry standards, which I don't really care for that term, like best practices. I mean, I don't want to be doing the same thing everyone else is doing. I want to do what should be done, right? So that's great. The challenge with that is you're not really getting to know their business. So you don't know if what you're recommending or comparing to really is that good fit. So usually we'll say to someone, listen, we'll get on, we'll provide you those managed services. We'll get all of our tools installed, we'll start supporting it. Then we will sit down and have that 12-month strategy. What's that going to look like once we know really what we're dealing with? Because look at surface level, it may be, oh, I think that should be addressed first. Then once you get into it, it's a completely different story, and it may be something more impactful. That actually just happened in an opportunity recently with us. Um, I specifically said to the person, the goal of our agreement here is for me to be your managed services provider and then to reduce your bill over the next 12 months because you're overpaying. And not too many MSPs will do that because you're turning away money. But it's what's in the best interest of that business to strive.
Wow. That's incredible. I'd love to understand. And actually, out of curiosity, just for me, how do you do those assessments today? You mentioned IT assessments, you mentioned risk assessments, you mentioned going using an assessment going into the proposal, and also the regular scans.
So we have some tools that we use to just obviously collect asset information, service tag numbers. We can look up warranties, things like that. We do, your standard. Hey, how are your records online? Pointing for mail and all that stuff. Where's your mail hosted? All those things. We have some conversations with those key people to see how that relationship is going with their existing provider, or if they don't have one, just to understand what's important. Where are you looking to go? What is your goal for your company, your vision, your strategy? And we put that into a document. We go through it. We talk it through. Um, we'll say typically organizations like yours would do this. This is what you have. I recommend closing this gap, or we need to understand more before I can make a recommendation.
I love how there's so much due diligence in every single step of this process. It's conversational. You're asking the right questions. You're getting the data, and it's a really tight process throughout. I'd love to switch gears a little bit because I was looking at your just your career path, and it just fascinated me. So I understand that you weren't always president at Copeland. Uh, back in 2000, you started working at Copeland as a systems admin, and you were president at DocuSys. I'd love to understand what that is. And you eventually became VP of operations and then president. What was your career journey like? What's the story?
What was my career journey? Wow. Yeah, it's a great question. I love truly do love my story. I feel I'm the type of person that learns through experience. I'm not the person who through a course or something like that can learn what to do and decisions to make. So I learn by experience. So um, went to college for managed information systems here at a university here in Western New York. Got an internship with Copeland through a mutual contact. They were the IT company of my father's organization. He started a business that's still going today. So I got that entrepreneurship kind of in my blood. I was with Copeland for 4.5 years. In 2005, I just had aspirations of doing something big, and at that time it didn't fit. It didn't align with what the existing owners were looking to do, which I have no obviously hard feelings about that. We parted amicably. We helped each other. They were great about it. They encouraged me, which was fantastic. You can't find that sometimes. Sometimes there's animosity there.
Yeah.
Um, Went off and started a document management business called DocuSys. Um, and that was very difficult. I learned what it was like not to make any money. I learned
Yep.
what it was like to rely on somebody else for income. I learned what it really meant for someone to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think going through that for anybody is a great way to understand where you don't want to be.
Hmm.
Uh, so I ended up growing that, partnered up with a couple of document management companies that really backed me. We worked really well together. A long time ago, I was probably one of the first ones to look at getting document management in the cloud with this one specific organization I was reselling for, and started to build that. And then Copeland approached me in 2013, I believe. At that time, I actually had two jobs because I was doing DocuSys, and then I had a job on the side to provide insurance because we had children. So I had to do both to make sure we had the insurance aspect of it. We had twin girls out of the gate, so
Wow.
obviously the cost was high. Um, and then Copeland approached me. They said, "Listen, we're not going to be the same company forever. We're a software development company. We do some networking support and things like that, but we need some help taking it to that MSP level." So I came back
Hmm.
and really shifted the culture and model of the organization from T&M project based to reoccurring monthly revenue.
Hmm. That happened around the 2014 time frame. What changed either in the industry, in the market, or internally that made the team want to switch to managed? Was it purely the recurring revenue, or was there a greater force coming from the industry, from the clients, from the technology?
Yeah, great question. So I think it was twofold. I think one was custom software was thought of differently. It started to morph into this outsource offshore. Um, you
Hmm.
know, everybody can do it. Just give us the requirements, we'll write the code type of thing.
I see.
Where Copeland was very big on the same thing we have today. We're putting in software applications that drive results. It makes you unique in your industry. So they would create these applications, these ERPs, and they would be fantastic. But the model shifted in software, and they saw this happening very smartly, and they wanted to get away from that that pay for T&M model. So I think they started taking on the risk of having people in the seats without the customers assuming some of that risk and cost. So hey, you know, you don't have to pay us a monthly fee, but we'll make sure you have someone here to talk to. And that model just can't sustain itself.
Yeah, I 100% agree. This it's similar to the story that I've heard from MSPs when they switch from break fix to MSP, right? In terms of switching to that model, but it's very unique how it was a switch from custom software development to managed services. Does this mean that you like use your own software, in terms of when you're managing your clients? Is there any overlap to what you guys were doing before?
Sure. So we recently moved off of our own custom platform. So we had been using it was just amazing for us, like having
Yeah, yeah,
developers, right? That could
yeah, yeah.
you just want to tweak this little thing, and one day, hey, yeah, here you go, it's rolled out. So it was great having that, but we had to reinvent the wheel every time we wanted something. So
Mm,
what we found was because of our size and our growth, it was time we had to move off of our custom platform, which was very difficult.
yeah,
We
yeah.
do um, to a platform that's built specifically for us that we don't have to come up with a lot of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly driven.
Focus.
Yeah, it's focused. Yeah. So we do
Um,
miss.
yeah, no, it sounds really nice. It's like, oh, I have a
Yeah,
question. Oh, they're just down the hall, and oh, here's the bug fix, or here's the
exactly.
update. Um, Career question here, for IT directors and VPs and um, folks working at these companies. Um, what was your journey to become president at Copeland like? That's a crazy story. Like looking outside in.
Sure, sure.
And what was the challenge or the obstacles you faced, or just how did you get there? I imagine it's not an easy thing to do.
It is not an easy thing to do. I think my personality and my we use a lot of analytics for behavior and things like that. I align very well with the role. I do a lot of coaching and things on the side for youth sports and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like that rah rah vision type of guy. Um, it was a journey that had to be very I'd be very cautious of pushing too hard and things like that because understandably the founder and then a later owner came on board.
Mm-hmm.
This was their thing and they had done something wonderful for a very long time, and you have to be careful when you say, hey, this needs to change, but they were absolutely incredible.
Hmm.
They put their pride and ego aside, and they let myself and our current CTO today run with the new direction of where it needed to be. Um, and that was in a operational and technology role for myself and the current CTO. And then eventually we got to a point where age and just, hey, I want to cut back on my hours, things like that. It was time for me to step into that role. So it was difficult, but um, I had an amazing group of people to work together with. So I guess I would say I was very lucky and blessed to have those type of people to hand over the reins.
It reminds me of your approach to clients as well, right? There was a match there, right? There was a match, skill set, personality, experience, the team of people, the direction that you were driving. Um, I'm curious. You mentioned I want to talk about sports at the end, but you mentioned coaching
Mhm.
on the side. What type of coaching do you do on the side?
So coaching would just mostly be in youth sports. So
Hmm.
they're now getting to that age, they're playing hockey, soccer, baseball,
All right.
softball,
Well, let's dive right
all
in.
that fun
So
stuff. Yeah.
I noticed, yeah, you have baseball and hockey experience from way back, 1997, when you were in school, and you mentioned the Buffalo Bills earlier, football from New York, and I guess could you tell us a little bit about, what does sports play in your life? What's the influence? What did you know, and given that it seemed to have an influence on your personality and you becoming president and your leadership skills, I'd love to understand how sports plays into your life.
Absolutely. I think that's a great thing to talk about because I think um, just to be transparent with myself, growing up, very emotional, very competitive, played baseball and hockey, played college D1 baseball, kind of walked on as I played goalie as hockey, so I walked on as a fourth string goalie while playing baseball on scholarship. And I was not very mature still at that point. Um, and then through coaching and trying to understand how to communicate with different types of personality, kids of different,
Mm.
other coaching staff, other coaches, instructors, and all of a sudden I'm connecting with a lot of these different people. It helped me mature personally
Hmm.
to I haven't gotten there yet because no one's going to get to perfect, but I'm improving myself constantly on my communication skills and control of my emotions and how to relate to people and empathy. But sports teaches about failure, which I believe in heavily. If you're not failing, you're not growing. And we talk about this with kids who are 7, 8, 9 years old to push themselves to their limits and fail because that grows, that expands you out of your box. So I think coaching and youth sports are fantastic for failure and getting past adversity. I would 100% recommend it.
I'm just curious because it sounds like you have a lot of firsthand experience with this in your life as well. Did you have an instance for you um, where you sort of hit, like, put your hit your limit and put your all into something, and then there's this big challenge, this failure um, for yourself personally, and that taught you something, or
Sure.
was it mainly through coaching?
I think one of the biggest examples was when I came into college D1 baseball, delivered my first year pretty well. And then I started to slip. And I got into a mindset of it's everybody else's fault except mine.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't I starting? Why aren't I doing this? Why? But at the end of the day, I didn't realize my my personality, my behavior was a negative impact on people. It was not lifting my teammates up. I wasn't doing everything I could to be better, to be the best. And if I wasn't the best, to support the best. And only until later on through coaching did I realize that um, I had that shortcoming in my college profession. I wasted the 4 or 3 years of my college career complaining and wondering why
Mm.
this is all happening to me instead of being in more control of my future and my outcomes. So
Wow.
sometimes it doesn't happen right away. I think sometimes it takes some maturing before you can realize what really happened.
Wow. I I think a lot of people can relate to that,
Mhm.
and it's a tough journey to go through. But I think the reward of the self reflection, the maturity, the wisdom, um, the empathy for other people. Because I'm seeing connections here to your management, personality, your principles, your sales, and how you work with clients and speak to them, and yeah. So yeah, I guess what other are you huge fan of Buffalo Bill? Yeah, Buffalo Bills. Did you grow up in the New York area? Has that always been your team?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% am a Bills fan. Went through the 4 years of the Super Bowl disappointment in the early 90s. Was at a bunch of games, and it's definitely a staple in my past and my history. And I went with my father to a bunch of games, saw some amazing
Oh
moments.
wow.
And I've been in Western New York my entire life. Yeah, and it's good to be a Bills fan right now.
Uh-huh.
But I think the pressure is on them to deliver now. They've always been the underdog,
Hmm.
and now it's time they step up and they deliver. So I
Are
wish
are
them the
your
best.
are your twin daughters Bills fans too?
They're not too much into football. They're just starting to kind of get used to it. They were obviously at younger ages, it's sports are for fun, right?
Hmm.
So sitting down and watching a game and things like that, a football, they're just like, wow, they're really beating each other up. They didn't really understand like, hey, it's professional. But now they're starting to they're playing at higher levels. They're starting to understand competition and what it takes to succeed at those high levels. So
How
they're
how
getting.
old are they now?
My twin girls are going to be 11, and then my son is 9.
Oh, nice. Wow. Oh, they're really growing up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like elementary, yeah, like elementary school.
Mhm.
Yeah. What was 'cause yeah, you mentioned you had twin girls and this all happened at the same time, and you had your son, who was around 2 years old by then. What was that like? Like, yeah, what was that?
Three kids, 3 kids under 19 months. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think when your first experience of children is twins, you don't know any different. So I'm kind of happy that it happened that way. It was tough. I mean, if it wasn't for my amazing wife, I don't know how they would be where they are today. A lot of sleepless nights, but a lot of that um, a lot of those sleepless nights and the hardships and stuff that come with newborns and everything, I think brings that family together. So, um, twins is great. they're completely opposite of each other, which is even
Oh
better.
wow.
They're identical, but they still come together. And they pull the twinsies card. And then my son is he's mini me, but a better version. So
What are the opposite personalities?
we have one that is very social and energetic and gets their battery recharged by interacting with people, and the other one likes one person. Crowds not too much, incredibly competitive, up at 6:30,
Oh
all the
wow.
responsibilities taken care of. The other one would sleep all day. So it's each one
Just
is
enjoying life.
wonderful in her
Yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
That is awesome. That is awesome. As we get to the end of the podcast and we wrap up, I'd love to understand what advice would you give people, or rather, in your 20 plus, 23-year career, what are your most important learnings that you want to share with our audience?
yeah. I think there is something to be said from working from the ground up. I think pushing yourself and spending time reflecting on yourself and improving yourself is always a wonderful thing. I guess there's two things I would probably bring to the table in this situation. Number one is make sure you take care of yourself. Okay. Early in my career, 60, 80-hour weeks, um, eating poorly, poor nutrition, 6 cups of coffee by noon. Hitting up the lunch person who comes in to sell muffins and things, like all those things. If you don't spend time on yourself, you can't give your best to other people. So I would say that's a very, very strong lesson I've learned is that if you want to be your A game for your team, you got to put in the work on yourself. Um,
I really, really relate to that. And I think a lot of us, workaholics, right? Like 60, 80 hours.
Mhm.
I, I want to know what was the impact or the result of not taking care of yourself? What happened? Or at its worst, and what made you say, oh, I got to change this? And what was the result of changing it?
Absolutely. There was definitely one moment. I remember it was right before COVID. Um,
Wow.
I was having all kinds of digestive issues and just problems. And I felt horrible. And I went and had a scan, an ultrasound, and they said, "Oh, by the way, you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease." And I'm like, "I don't
Wait, what
even
does that
drink.
mean?
Like,
Yeah.
I don't even drink. How do I have a fatty liver?" And they're like, "You do." And she said it very like, passively,
Matter of
like,
fact.
"Oh,
Yeah.
that's what you got." And I remember saying to myself, like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was 236 pounds. And I promised myself, and I'll never forget this. It was March 14th. We were sending everybody home, right? Pandemic had hit. Everybody's going to work from home. And I wrote on my board, I said, this will not define me, and I will not gain weight. I will get in better shape. And I wrote that on the board. And a year and a half later, when I finally came back to the office, I was in the best shape of my life.
Wow.
Um, I had a better understanding from a podcast standpoint and from a knowledge base standpoint how my body works. Um, I had disconnected from work, spent time with my family, get out into nature, all of these things. And
Wow.
I'm constantly looking for ways to improve my health because I want to make it to 100. There's no reason we should be stopping at 67, 70. We should be moving forward past that. So, not to preach or anything like that, but there was definitely a moment. And I hope that others don't take it to that point because it was very hard. It was 2 years to lose like 40 pounds, but also be healthy and stuff like that. So um, it's a huge, if you can do anything for yourself, it is to improve your own health because that just amplifies everything else you do.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story
Sure.
and these words of wisdom. I think oftentimes I get lost in the day to day, and time passes and it goes, oh, I haven't been taking care of myself for 10 years now. What happened? It's like, I'm gonna do it next year. I'm gonna do it next year, and then 10 years pass by. So I'm totally guilty of that, and yeah, I think a lot of business owners, MSPs can totally relate to that as well. Um, no, you're right. You're right. And taking care of yourself means that it amplifies and you can be your best self for other people. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's very valuable. Thank you so much, Eric, for speaking with us and sharing your stories, your career learnings and experience, and your wisdom with us. The last question is, who should reach out to you, and what's the best way to reach you?
Sure. The best way to reach out to me, obviously, email is unfortunately the best way. Eposa at copelandts.com, or you can follow me on LinkedIn, Eric Posa. I try to put up as much content that's not technical. It's more leadership driven,
Hmm.
and really sometimes I'll share some stuff from our company that is technical, some how tos on the 365 platform. Anything to share the knowledge because honestly, if we as a community can help teach the user base to be better. Not only are the cyber attacks and all that stuff happening going to go down, but people are going to be able to advance themselves and do more for their jobs and be more comfortable with the future. So, anything that we can do to provide no cost information on technology to the public is awesome for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. And the links will be in the description. And the final plug for us is MSPs. If you want to use risk assessments to win new clients and help your clients meet compliance and do it all automated, get your free automated risk assessments today on telivy.com. And special promotion for podcast listeners. That's you. If you like Telivy and want to run automated risk assessments for more clients and more endpoints, let us know you came from the podcast. We'll give you 20% off the upgrade as well. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for speaking with us. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. It was
Well,
great. Thank you so much for having me.